In December 2022, biology teacher and former Green Beret Dan Forrester fails to get a job at a prestigious research center. While he is watching the World Cup at a Christmas party, soldiers from the year 2051 arrive to warn that humanity is on the brink of extinction due to alien invaders, the White Spikes. In response, members of the world's military forces are sent into the future, but fewer than 20% survive, prompting a worldwide draft. After a year of the draft and a growing anti-war movement, there is little hope for humanity's survival. Dan receives a notice that he has been drafted and reports with other draftees to basic training. Dan deduces with fellow draftee Charlie, Sam Richardson, that in order to prevent a paradox, those drafted have already died before the war starts in 2050. Emmy Forrester, Betty Gilpin, Dan's wife and a therapist for returning draftees, tells Dan that only 30% of the draftees return from the war and have horror tales of aliens and the clicking sounds they make. Emmy begs Dan to take help from James Forrester, J.K. Simmons, Dan's father, an anti-government extremist and Vietnam veteran. Dan and James are not on talking terms, as Dan thinks James abandoned him. Dan reaches out to James, but even James can't help in this case, as the tracker on Dan is synced to his pulse. Dan's crew includes Charlie, Dorian, Edwin Hodge, a cancer-stricken draftee on his third tour of duty, who killed the first ever White Spike on record. Elte Hart, Yasmina Matils. The jump link that allows time travel only allows travel between 2 points in time that keep moving forward as per normal. Time travel is not yet perfected, so this is the only way possible for now, and they can't jump to an earlier point in the war. The White Spikes retreat into their nest every 6 days for 1 day of rest. That's when they insert the troops. Dan's crew is inserted to protect the last lab, which is studying the White Spikes. If the lab is lost, the war is lost. The draftees are sent forward in time to Miami Beach, but few survive, only the ones who fall in a pool on the top of a high-rise, having been dropped in the incorrect location above the city. The draftees are ordered by Colonel Forrester, Ivan Strahovski, to rescue nearby lab personnel before the area is sterilized. The draftees discover the lab personnel dead, but recover their research. Dan radios to command about the situation and is instructed to escape the area. Many of the draftees are killed when the White Spikes attack them inside the building, with only a handful able to reach safety. The survivors wake up in a military encampment in the Dominican Republic. Dan is asked to report to Colonel Forrester, who is his grown daughter Maury. Maury tells Dan that she brought Dan to the future for a reason, and she will tell at the right time. Within a few weeks, humanity will be extinct. She requests him to accompany her on a mission to capture a female White Spike, which are rarer than the males typically encountered. Maury has a toxin that kills the males but not the females. So, she wants to capture one to study why not and what would kill it. Maury also tells Dan that the White Spikes appeared out of nowhere and managed to evade all satellites. They first attacked Russia. They caged the female, only to have hundreds of males descend on their position. As the helicopter with the female lifts off, Dan and Maury escape to a beach and radio for rescue. Dan and Maury are transported to the jump link, located on a fortified oil rig in the middle of the ocean. Dan and his daughter work on a toxin that can kill the captured female. They find a match for killing the aliens, just as they start to breach the base. As the White Spikes attack the base, the formerly captive female spears Colonel Forrester with one of her spikes. She plummets from the gantry, and Dan follows her off just before he is transported back to the past with the toxin to mass produce it. Dan tries to give the toxin to the military so it can be sent back to the future, but learns that the jump link is offline, having been destroyed by the White Spikes. The world has become chaotic with the news that the jump link is offline, foretelling the war was lost. Brainstorming with his wife, he deduces that the White Spikes did not arrive in 2048 but came much earlier. Further research leads him to theorize the White Spikes are actually already on Earth, and that global warming caused their release when they thawed out and emerged from under the ice caps. Their first location being near northern Russia. The government refuses to help Dan as the world is rioting and Russia has closed its borders. So, Dan, Dorian, and Charlie team up with James to enter Russia covertly. Lieutenant Hart joins Dan as she call Forrester. Dan leads a mission to Russia to prove his theory and finds an alien ship in an ice cap. The team debates telling the world about the problem, but decides to end the threat right then and there. Once inside, they realize that the alien ship is not actually a White Spikes ship, and that the White Spikes were cargo for the deceased alien crew. They proceed with injecting the dormant White Spikes with the toxin. This kills those injected, but wakes all the remaining White Spikes. The team realizes the initial White Spikes they find are only a drop in the bucket and decide to detonate the ship manually. The team successfully blows up the alien ship once they realize it is the only method of containment, but one female escapes. Dan and his father track down the female and are able to kill it in a frenetic battle to the death, preventing the future war from occurring. Dan returns home to his wife and daughter, secure knowing that the future has been altered.